bokradio.co.za.
Baie welkom hier by Boek Radio 98.9 FM. Vandag is Woensdag en soos elke Woensdag gaan ek vir jou 'n boek feature. En ek het verlede week op 'n baie interessante persoon afgekom. Sy naam is Sebas en hy is van Amerika, Pennsylvania oorspronklik en hy bly nou in Switserland, Zurich. En ek het met Ian kontak gemaak deur 'n gesamentlike vriend en vir hom gesê, hoorie, ek wil baie graag met jou gesels. So I just want to read the introduction. And excuse me for my English, all of our listeners know my English isn't very good, but I want to read the introduction to your book, Survived. Going back to the memories of his life story seems rough, lonely, cold, and a dark journey with paths of his sunny spells, which for some reason he believed had to be retraveled for the purpose of exhaling. By facing his beginnings, he storms the neglect and oppression that molded him, the crossroads that he encountered, his choices, his luck, and the evil within him that was once awakened and rule his fate. But most importantly, he's changed.
That's right.
Good morning, Ian. How are you?
Good morning, Le-Lue. I'm good.
It's so nice having you here. Thank you so much for making the time and coming to Book Radio.
Thank you for the invitation.
It's such an honor. Your book Survived. For years you've hesitated about telling the story, and for several different reasons.
That's right.
What is the reasons, and what's in a nutshell? Because it's a thick book, and there's
604 pages.
604 pages. It's quite a read, and I want to tell you. I want to ask you, what was the story? What is your story? Why did you write the book?
Right. So the main reason for writing the book now, or hesitating or delaying to write the book, I believe if you're going to tell a life story, you should tell the truth.
Yes.
And there were parts of the story that I was ashamed of. There was a part of the story that I wish I could just bury and no one will ever know about it. But then if I write a book like that, the readers will realize that a real person is absent because none of us are perfect. So I guess with maturity, with age, with time, I decided, okay, hang everything out and I will also benefit from it. It's like I say, exhaling, like just de-stressing, unloading everything.
And I think acceptance. If you're older, then you accept your past and you make peace with your past. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up and what was the conditions where you grew up.
I was born in Kingston, Jamaica, in the 1970s. And 1970s Kingston, Jamaica, I guess like most third world countries, was behind the times. Poverty ruled, and where poverty ruled, violence ruled. So there were exposures to gangs, guns, everything illicit. And the goal back then for parents was, let's try to go to a better place. And that better place for my parents was the USA. USA was a promised land. And so after Jamaica migrated to the US, and the US, parts of the US I went to was Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
How can you believe?
Yes, but believe it or not, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which we thought was a promised land, was like jumping out of the pot into the frying pan. It was just as violent. It was just as rough as Kingston, Jamaica. And I must admit that despite all my mother's effort with trying to have her boys walk right, we didn't all fall into the right path. So the streets, I should say, sucked us up, took us in. And when I say that, I mean, in Philadelphia, even until this day, illicit drugs ran the street. We're talking about in the 1980s, that was crack cocaine that ran the street. If you weren't selling, you were using. It's just one of those things you could not escape from. And with crack cocaine, whether you're selling or you're using, the end is inevitable. You're going to go to prison at some point.
Yes.
So the whole book about Survive is about getting up one day, which I did, and just said, I've had enough of this.
I want to get out.
I want to get out from this. Because my fortunate was having a previous culture, Jamaica. And in Jamaica, we only struggled with poverty. We didn't so much struggle with a society of incarceration. It was non-existent. If you went to prison in Jamaica, you must have been a really bad guy. But when I went to the U.S. after school, every household had a family member or more that's either on drugs, in prison, on parole. It was
Selling drugs.
Yeah, it was an epidemic. It was nothing strange. If you weren't involved in the controlled substance business, it was as if you were abnormal. You know, so it's like it was the norm.
What did you do to get out of that?
You know, after being incarceration has a positive side to it, depending on the person, because it's a time out from society. It's a time out from life. And I had a lot of time to think. And the real me was always a writer, so I spent most of my time writing and reflecting. I tend to write from real places. I have to feel the emotion, or I have to see it, I have to witness whatever is it that I'm writing about. And the time away gave me a chance to see Philadelphia from an external point of view. So by the time I was supposed to go home, I didn't like where I was going back to. I didn't like what was called home. And I told my mom, I don't want to be in America anymore. And she actually supported my decision. Okay, my siblings thought I was crazy.
This is the dream,
You know?
American dream.
Yeah, where you going? Yes, I'm going back to the only place I know, Jamaica.
Yeah.
And they said, well, you don't know anyone there. There's no one in Jamaica. Everyone is here. And I says, but everyone in Jamaica is free.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see freedom here. So what forces me and what caused me to do that? It wasn't my situation of being incarcerated. I saw people coming in every day, young people, 19, 20, 21. How long are you here for? 20 years. How long are you here for? 10 years. How long are you here for life?
Wow.
And that scared me.
Yeah.
Because they were my ages. And you counsel with them, and sometimes you learn that they're not bad guys. They're not criminals. They're just branded criminals.
Yeah.
And
they made the wrong choice.
yes. Interestingly, with my situation, this has happened 30 years ago. Interestingly, I've been involved in drugs since I was 8, 9 years old. My mom was involved in marijuana smuggling, you know, to make ends meet.
Yes.
And when we went to the United States of America, my mom got legit. She did a 9 to 5. She stayed away from drugs.
Walk the straight and narrow.
She walked the straight and narrow. While I was in Philadelphia, as a teenager, I wanted the latest shoes, the latest this, the latest that. So the fastest money was from selling drugs. But interestingly, when I was arrested, I had nothing. I actually went to prison innocently.
Okay. I was just about to ask you, what did you do?
Yeah, so actually I went to prison innocently. So let me clear that up.
Yeah.
Have I ever been in the trade of illicit drugs? 100%. Have I ever been in the handling of guns? 100%. You cannot escape these things in the U.S., especially as a teenager. But on the night of my arrest, did I have a gun in my possession? Did I have drugs in my possession? No.
Oh my God. And
No,
you were arrested?
I was arrested. So this is how I got arrested. I had a best friend from college, and we were like best of friends, and his illicit activities weren't so much my illicit activities.
Okay.
My illicit activity was trade. I give you a product, you give me money. His illicit activity was like robbery. I'll take what you have and I give you nothing in return. So as much as we're friends from uni, we take separate paths in how we make our money. And he got caught up in one of his illicit activities. And the cops from North Philadelphia made a deal with him. If you can give us some money, we will get you off. So he kind of said, I know somebody with some money.
Oh no. Oh no, he threw you under the bus.
Yeah, that's right.
So much for being friends.
Right, so he kind of told them, I know somebody who has some money. So the night of my arrest, I was at home with him and the girlfriend, and we were there watching TV. The doorbell rang. I asked him, could you see who's that at the door? He went downstairs, he checked the door, he came back up, he said I was no one. But what he actually had done, he actually had went down and opened the door. All right, so he opened the door. So we're back watching TV. The next thing I knew, it was maybe a dozen cops in the house.
Oh my word.
Yeah. They knew exactly where my money was. They went to the closet, they got the money.
He told them everything.
Everything. And I didn't know that at first because they arrested both of us together. So we were both arrested, and I said to him, don't worry about it, I'll take care of you, my mom will take care of you. But to make a long story short, he was dropped from the case.
Because he worked with the police.
Yes. And I was excited when he got dropped from the case because I was like, well, if they found you innocent, they must find me innocent as well. That's how naive I was at the time, right? And the next thing I knew, I was at my lawyer's office one day, and my lawyer had this thing called a discovery. It's like a police report. And I quickly glanced it and realized that I saw his name there as...
Like a witness or...
the witness who's...
You're not going to buy that friend a donut anytime soon.
And before you know it, that was my first criminal offense. And I was sent away for 2.5 years. And to be honest, until this day, that sentence bothers me. Because again, how the judicial system work is innocent until proven guilty. I've done things even before that. I've taken money from my mom's purse. I've taken things that's not mine. But this particular night, I was 100%.
You were just watching TV?
Just watching TV. No drugs in my house, no drugs around me, nothing illicit around me. And I think while I was doing the time, I justified it by saying, well, in general, you're not an innocent person. I think that's what I used to justify it. In general, you've broken the rules. In general, you've committed crimes.
Yes.
But it still bothered me because of this is what I was arrested for. This is what they said I did. And to read it, to see it, the police officer who went to court to testify against me, I had never seen him before.
And he testified against you?
He'd never seen me before.
It's like a whole orchestrated thing.
Yes, I'd never seen him before, and it was all about the money. The thing that made me leave the U.S. was once you've got a record, it's like you are forever a criminal. No one will see you in another light. It doesn't matter if it happened in the 60s or the 50s or...
And it doesn't matter if you kicked a flower pot or murdered someone.
No, it doesn't matter. So I think I used my time to understand how the system worked. And I thought, well, I want better for myself. I'm not going to do this, and I'm going to leave the United States. And I left in 1997, and I never looked back. And I have no regret of never looking back on the U.S. All my siblings are still there.
Yeah.
I vanished for 19 years. For 19 years, no one knew if I was dead, alive, where
you were just gone.
I was just gone.
Making a new living.
Yes. Because one of my discipline that I adapted was people, places, and things. If you want a better life, change people, places, and things.
Yes.
The people you used to associate with, things you used to do, and the places you used to hang out.
Otherwise, it's not going to change.
It's not going to work. And It was not easy because some of these people have never offended me. Some of them I do love. But the simple fact that chain connection exists, you know you, and if I say hi to you, you're going to let them know he's here, he's doing this. So I just disappeared. And how does leaving America equates to survive? So let me explain how does leaving America equates to survive. You mentioned that you've heard of a fortunate meeting I've had.
Yes. Bokradio 98.9 FM of bokradio.co.za. Jy kan inskakel daar op daai webtuiste en jy gaan kyk op Bok TV waar jy die musiekvideo's en alles wat ons doen in die ateljee sommer lewendig op die TV-skerm kan sien. I'm in studio with Ian Sebas. He is a writer of the book Survived. And if you've listened to us previously, he was in America. He was in the American prison in Pennsylvania. He was in all the wrong sides of the law. He did numerous things. And in his time in prison, he thought to himself and he wanted to change. He removed himself from everything that he was, time, people, places, and things. You removed yourself from all of that. Where did you go and what did you do to begin over?
I went back to the only place that I knew. I went back to Jamaica. And at this time, going back to Jamaica, I've had my American experience. I've matured. So my point of views are a lot different. So when I went back to Jamaica, I didn't go back to the Jamaica that I knew.
Yes.
You know,
the rough part.
The rough part. So my standards was much higher. My ambitions were different. Now I've got dozens of manuscripts under my arms. I need to focus on writing. I need to focus on publishing. Writing has always been my solace. It has always aided me in times of hunger, times of happiness, times of depression. If I write, I feel
alive again. You feel right. Just like you're doing something positive.
That's right. So despite all my relationships in my life, some came, some went, writing has been the only one that remained consistent. And I went to Jamaica. Jamaica was still slow where literature is concerned. And I thought the only other place that I knew was the UK that was obsessed with literature. So at that time, leaving Jamaica to the UK, you didn't need a visa, you didn't need anything. You
can just go.
You can just go.
And how old were you when you left for the UK?
I left for the UK, I was 28 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 20. Still a young man. You know?
Young man, but streetwise.
Exactly. Streetwise. So going to the UK was a new start for me because now from the good and bad experience of the US, I knew exactly what not to do in the UK. So publishing was my main focus. And I contacted a publisher in London, sent me a contract. At that time, we were still using floppy disk.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Children of today, you won't know what that is.
So I sent my floppy disk, and they told me, this is going to cost you so much money. And I thought, I don't have this kind of money. So what I did all the researches that was necessary, how to become a publisher, how to become a publisher in the UK. Did a necessary course, had the necessary ISBN numbers allocated to me, started a little company, and my first publish was in the UK in 2005. That was my very first publish. It was a book of poetry, collection of poetry. You know, I was very proud of that book.
Oh, you can be. 2005, your first book in the UK.
Yes, that
well
was
done.
my first book. Prior to that, while I lived in America, I associated myself with the Library of Congress, 2 publishers, one in New York, one in Pittsburgh, but nothing ever truly manifested from it. So I took myself away and embraced my publishing in the UK.
I've heard a story about you meeting a very interesting man and you having you had to make a very big choice.
That's right.
Tell me about that story.
Okay. survived is not just accredited to me. You know, as a youngster growing up, a lot of people helped. A lot of people took me in for a night. A lot of people fed me, because while I was living in Jamaica and my mom was in the U.S., I was homeless in Jamaica. I didn't know what homeless meant. I just thought life was hard. You know, I didn't know I was homeless. I didn't know that was the definition of homeless, not having a home.
Yeah.
But I must mention the fact that there were so many people throughout my life that helped me here, helped me there, food, somewhere to sleep. Some ended good, some ended bad, you know. The bad ones were when my mother made deals. Like she would say, if you keep him for me for a week, I'll compensate you.
Okay.
And then when she doesn't compensate, those people were like really harsh, like, you gotta go.
And then they chase you away.
You just gotta go. You know, so I've had some of those,
Yeah.
but I've also had those that were mad at my mom, but still kept me.
Yes.
You know, so I must give credit to those. But my luck in this life came by this meeting you mentioned. One day I was with a friend. He was from the same neighborhood as myself. Chapter 5 of the book will say meeting
Ronald Emler.
That's right. Ronald Emler. I had to give him an entire chapter
Yeah.
because he changed my whole life. He brought a certain level of security to me that I'd never known before.
And who's Ronald Emler?
One day I went to see an older brother of mine who was living a little better than myself in an apartment complex that was previously a museum.
Okay.
And I saw this guy sitting with a bag. I says, good morning. I went up to see my brother, stayed an hour, came back, and he was still sitting there. So out of curiosity, I says, okay, first of all, he was white in this area, so it looked odd, you know? And he just looked like he didn't belong.
Yeah,
So
like he was lost or something.
Yeah, so I was concerned. And he says, oh, I'm waiting for the museum to open. And I said, oh, this museum will never open. It's not a museum anymore. People live.
No.
So back then, there was no internet, no Google. So he had this little tourist book.
Okay.
So
And it was an old tourist book,
tourist
obviously.
book, right. So I said, you're not going to find it here. So he says, could you take me to a hotel? I says, okay. The nearest hotel is in New Kingston. And he said, could we take a taxi? I said, no, taxi is too much money. We could take a bus. But he was a little careless because as he was taking out the bus fare, the friend that was with me saw that he had a lot of cash. And my friend was like, oh, we could take this. We could take him for his money. So I was like, no, he's lost. We should just take him to the hotel and leave it at that.
Yeah, the good guy in you just wanted to help him, and your friend wanted to rob him.
That's right. So now the friend is mad at me for not conspiring. So he's still walking with us, but he's now lagging behind.
He doesn't want to be there.
Doesn't want to be there. So when the guy got to the hotel, he checked in, he came back out, and I remember he gave me 400 Jamaican dollars at the time.
And is that a lot of money?
Back then, it was a lot of money. And what I did, I put 200 in one pocket, and I held the other 200 in my hand.
Yeah.
Went back to my friend, and I said, look, you wanted to rob him, he gave us $200.
Yeah.
What
a businessman you are.
And he was a little happier now.
Yeah.
So, to make a long story short, that man had given me his business card, and he said, let's keep in touch. And for 19 years, he kept in touch.
Oh, wow.
But I've never seen him again. I've only seen him that once. But
Yeah.
for 19 years, I would call him. He would write. He traveled the world. He would send me a postcard from anywhere in the world he goes. And when it was time for me to migrate to America, he paid my ticket. And even though I was in America, I still haven't seen him. Because
Really?
he's in California, I'm in Philadelphia.
Yes.
They're still worlds apart. And he's always said, take your time, One thing I must tell you I admired about him. Because even when I got myself in trouble, I was ashamed to tell him where I was.
Yeah.
And
because you had a lot of respect for him.
yes, I was ashamed to say, okay, I came to America and this what happened. But he was always like, who knows what's right or wrong in life? You know, who set the rules? He was never judgmental. He says, just do what you think is best for you. I'm here for you. And he's never said, do this or do this. It's never dictated my life or my decision. He says, I don't think I'm in a position to tell you
what to do.
I'm 60 years old and I still don't know what to do. You know, I'm still just making this thing. So after 19 years of calling this number
and writing to each other.
Writing, this is a number I know off the top of my head, so I don't have to look it up.
Yeah.
I've called it so much. There's one time I called and it was disconnected.
And
that was a shocker to me that it was disconnected. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a second number. So I went back, believe it or not, I still had that card for 19 years, that business card. And it had a job number on it that I'd never called before.
Yeah.
And I called it and they were saying, you know, I'm sorry, but unfortunately it's passed away.
No.
Right. And I was like really gutted. They was like, unfortunately it's passed away. But we know your name and we've got some people that's looking for you. You know, his lawyers are looking for you. So I gave them the number they can reach me and they called me and they was like, we've got some fortunate and unfortunate news for you. The unfortunate news is that Ron has passed away. He didn't want anyone to know that he was ailing because he says to tell you he had a good life. He enjoyed his time. He was fortunate to meet you and all that. And then they said, the next news we have is that he has left his estate to you.
His whole estate.
Yes.
He left it to you.
Yes.
And you met him once in your life.
One time I've met him. I've met this person once.
And you just kept contact with phone calls.
Phone calls.
And he was, I don't know anything about this guy, but I think he was so good with summing you up as person and your personality and seeing the good guy in you.
Yes. Yeah. He left his entire estate to me. I didn't know if I should be happy, sad, because I preferred to have his existence. He was one of those person that I thought could never die.
Yeah.
Immortal. He was so good to me. The security that he gave me was what I never had from my mother or father or anyone. As long as he was alive, I felt like I'm fine.
Yes.
Anything happen, I can call Ron. You know, I'm fine.
That safety net.
Yes. So when he died, that's what I missed. So yeah, it still hurts today.
Yes.
That happened in 2005. And it happened at a time when I was keeping a secret from him because I was in the middle of this book.
Your first one?
My first book that I wanted to surprise him with.
Oh, man.
And it was at that time he passed away. And I had to tell the printers, could you roll that back? Because now I have to put a dedication page in it, you know, for Ron. So that was what happened. And my job or my duty that I took on after inheriting the estate was to play it forward. What do I think Ron would want me to do with my life or with this money? Okay, the first thing I did was invested in what I love, publishing.
Yes, writing.
Writing.
Yeah.
So this was the first thing I did. And then my entire life since 2005, I've been dedicated to playing it forward. I do the very same. I sum up people. And if I sense goodness in you, I will reward you more than you could ever imagine. I mean, I've got one in the studio right now. There's someone in the studio here with me. I said last year I went to Tanzania. And I met her in Tanzania. And she did a very tiny favor for me while I was on the resort. And I says to my wife, I think she's a candidate. She didn't have to do what she did. So let's surprise her with a trip to South Africa.
Oh, wow.
And that's why she's here today.
Paying it forward. And I just want to come in here and say, we're going to take another ad break now, but I just want to come here and say, you had the choice. And you made that choice because of the person that you are and the good that you wanted to be and the good that was actually within you. You had the choice. Rob this man because your friend told you to.
That's right.
Your friend told you, rob him. Look at all his money. Rob him. And you made that choice.
One little decision.
One little small decision can change your whole life.
That's right.
And I want that to sink into the listeners as well. Dis Woensdag hier op Boek Radio 98.9 FM. Ek is so bevoorreg om met Ian Sebas in die atelier te sit en te kuier oor sy boek Survive. Now Ian told us so much interesting stories now, and Ian, I'm stunned, and I feel so overwhelmed with you being here because you're the guy that had it rough. You had it rough. You grew up and you had it rough, and you made all the right decisions because you're a good guy.
Thank you.
That's actually where it all comes together. You're a good guy, and you had this in you. You could have made the worst decisions, and you chose to make the best ones.
That's right.
And what do you, I'm sitting here with a book, Survived, in my hand. What do you want to tell your readers with this book?
The main point of the book is to inspire people of any class. You don't have to be from the gutters. You could be of any class. And, because poverty or depression attacks every and anyone. And my book is pretty much saying, despite how you start out, whether that's in life, in love, in anything, it does not determine your end. It does not determine your future. The scars of my unfortunate experiences in the U.S. does not determine who I am. I don't allow a piece of paper to dictate and say,
to define you.
Yeah, to define me, to say this is who you are. Because like I said, I've met innocent people who has terrible record. And I've met evil people
with no record.
With no record. So that does not define me. So I wear my unfortunate experience proud. If you should ask me to relive my life, would I change any part of it? No, because if I did, how I am today and who I am today would not be the same person.
You had to go through everything that you went through, good
That's
or bad,
right. Good or bad,
to be here today.
Yes. If I never experienced injustice, then I wouldn't fear it. I fear injustice because I've experienced it. I've sitting in a court of law where there was a whole testimony, a whole story around an incident that never took place. So if I never experienced that, I probably would still be comfortably living in the U.S. today. But that one experience scared me. But the main thing of the book is willpower. It overrules everything and anything. You just have to look in the mirror one day, ask yourself, who are you? What do you want? And make that decision. It's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy. There were times that when I walked away, I didn't know anyone. Everybody who knows me today, I've only known me in the last 20 years. There's no one in my life today that says, oh, I remember you when you
were a kid.
No.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to start over, but it is rewarding to start over. It is very rewarding.
And if you want to make that change, if you find yourself in a situation where you think you can't get out of this,
yes,
the place where you're growing up, or your background, or anything is against you.
yes.
And I'm not telling all the children walk away from home.
No,
please don't do
no.
that. But if you find yourself in a situation with friends, if you have the wrong friends,
that's right.
if your friends keep on making you do bad things,
that you feel in your heart is not you.
Go away.
Yes.
Get new friends. Start over.
Start over.
Be the best person you can be.
Yes.
Ian, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. And you are in Cape Town now for the past week 2 weeks. Past week.
Last week I've been here.
And what have you done? What have you done in Cape Town? I saw you on Instagram. You were in the winelands. You're tasting our beautiful wines.
I've been to the winelands. Been to Total Ninja. We took on this challenge in Cape Town called Total Ninja.
Yeah?
That was a bit exciting as well. We've been whining and dining a lot.
That's what you do in Cape Town.
Yes,
That's what you do.
Yeah, so I think we're going back home with a few kilos. But we've been eating a lot.
Yeah.
Love Cape Town. I love it, and it's one of those cities that I'll definitely revisit.
Yes. You must go up. I just told you before we came in, I told you to go to the cable car on Table Mountain.
Yes.
Table Mountain's cable car is 94 years old this year. So you must really, really go. I don't want to say climb the mountain up because you're talking about that extra few kilos. But the cable car is such an amazing experience. So, Ian, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. Where can the listeners buy your book?
This book is online. It's at a lot of retailers. To find it easily, you have to put Survived Raw and Unedited. Survived
Raw and Unedited. Ian T. Sebas. I've Googled you yesterday and I've stalked you on Instagram and Facebook. So, yeah, you are incredible, man. Thank you.
Right. Thank you
so
for
much.
having me.
So much pleasure. Right. Thank you.
Boek Radio. Ook op Boek TV.